The first time you hear the Nine, it doesn't sound like prophecy, it sounds like interference. A mission channel that should be clean suddenly fills with a strange broadcast. Too calm, too ceremonial, like a signal that's been waiting for you specifically. And then the phrase lands in your helmet like a cold coin. All hail the Nine. If you're like most Guardians, that's where you file them away. Another spooky name, another campfire rumor, another maybe later mystery. But then you find the second piece, and it changes the shape of the room. A glyph carved somewhere it shouldn't be, old stone, older intent, reading like a warning disguised as guidance. The light of Nine guides hidden fates. That's the hook, and that's the promise. The Nine aren't just a myth you can ignore, they're a hand on the board. And the moment you understand that, the stakes click into place. Because if someone is guiding hidden fates, then the lives you think you're choosing might already be chosen for you. Your ghost doesn't talk for a few seconds after that. It just drifts, scanning the air like it expects the broadcast to return, like it expects the walls to start listening back. Then the tower calls you in. Not with a celebration, not with a rally, with an urgency you only hear when the vanguard is trying not to panic in public. Zavala's log is blunt. An emergency council meeting called over reports that the Nine are corroding the last city. Not attacking with ships, not bombarding the walls, corroding, like influence is an acid you can't shoot. That's the first real payoff. The Nine aren't distant cosmic poetry. The vanguard treats them like a present tense threat. And if they're close enough to corrode the city, then this isn't a mystery story anymore. It's an infiltration story. Quick thanks for being here. If you like Destiny lore told like an actual story, hit like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And tell me what other games or series you want lore videos for, because I'm building the next run of scripts around what you request. The Vanguard doesn't give you a clean target. They can't. The Nine don't leave footprints the way Cabal do. They leave patterns, weird coincidences, people making choices that don't feel like theirs, alliances bending the wrong way. Ikora's name comes up next, and when Ikora is involved, it means the problem has already crossed the line from battlefield to psyche. Her warning is simple. The Nine have sent an emissary, and that emissary isn't coming to negotiate. It's coming to disrupt what little unity the city has left. Now you've got a shape. The Nine speak in broadcasts and symbols. They guide hidden fates. They corrode the city, and they have an emissary moving in the open. So you do what Guardians do. You go where the city pretends it doesn't have problems. You go see the Drifter. Gambit always feels like a joke told with a knife. The Drifter smiles too easily, like his teeth are part of the con. He talks about rules while watching you break them, like breaking them was the point all along. You've heard the rumors? Everyone has. That he knows things he shouldn't, that he's survived things no one else did, that he trades in secrets the way other people trade in glimmer. But this isn't a rumor anymore, because behind his throne, behind the little theater of swagger and grime, you find the mark. A Nine sigil carved where only someone close would ever look, not scratched by accident, placed like a devotion or a warning or both. Your ghost light tightens into a hard white beam. It doesn't like what it sees. Then you find the ledger. Not a confession, not a manifesto, just a record, names, tallies, little notes that read like somebody keeping score for an audience that doesn't clap, legendary kills recorded in the name of the Nine. The Drifter calls it business. Your ghost calls it what it is. He was dealing with the Nine the whole time. That line hits harder than it should because it reframes everything in the tower you've ever dismissed as Drifter being Drifter. The jokes, the flirtation with darkness, the way he's always been half a step to the side of the Vanguard's light. It wasn't chaos, it was alignment. And now the Nine aren't an abstract they. They're a presence with fingerprints on a living person you talk to. Orientation recap, because the story turns fast here. You heard the Nine on a broadcast. You found their guidance carved into the world like a map. You learned the Vanguard believes their influence is actively corroding the city and that an emissary is already in play. And then you found the proof that the Drifter, right under the tower's nose, has been entangled with them. Now, the question isn't, who are the Nine? The question is, what do they want with you? Because another truth surfaces as soon as you start pulling threads. The Nine don't talk like gods. They talk like strategists. There's a codex entry that lays it out with unsettling clarity. Guardians aren't heroes to them. Guardians are pieces in an eternal game. A cosmic chessboard where power isn't measured by virtue, but by positioning. That's the aren't what you think moment. Most people imagine the Nine as neutral observers, or ancient caretakers, or some distant balancing force. But the evidence you've got in your hands doesn't describe bystanders. It describes players. And players don't watch. players move pieces, which means the Drifter isn't the only piece that can be moved. He's just the one you caught. So you confront him, not with threats, not with a speech, with the simple weight of what you found, the sigil, the ledger, the pattern that makes his whole persona look like camouflage. He doesn't laugh it off this time. He can't. The moment is too clean. The Guardian corners the Drifter and demands answers about his deals with the Nine, because if the Nine are corroding the city and he's been talking to them, then this isn't just his problem anymore, it's everyone's. And in that pressure, the story locks into its real genre. Not cosmic mythology, but espionage. The Nine are close. They recruit, they manipulate, they treat Guardians like tools. And even the parts of the law that try to define them admit the uncomfortable truth. Their origins and motives remain deliberately unclear. And most of what we have is influence, agents, messages, effects, rather than a clean biography. So, part 1 ends with something solid, not speculative. The Nine have an active footprint in the city's orbit. They speak directly into your world through broadcasts and symbols. They position Guardians as pawns in a larger game. And the Drifter, one of the tower's most unpredictable operators, has been tied to them in a way that can't be waved away as rumor. That's not a myth. That's a presence. That's a faction. That's a hand already on the board, waiting to see which way you move. The Drifter doesn't deny it. Not when you show him the mark. Not when you lay the ledger down like a weapon. Not when you stand there and force the joke out of the room. He just leans back in his chair, lets the silence stretch, and watches you the way a gambler watches someone who still believes the table is fair. Then he does the one thing that tells you you're finally close to the truth. He stops performing. The grin softens into something older, tired, careful. The kind of expression people wear when they've survived by knowing when to shut up. He doesn't give you a confession. He gives you a warning, in the only language he trusts. Consequences. If you keep pulling at this thread, he tells you, without saying it directly, you're not going to like what's attached to the other end. Because the Nine aren't a cult. They aren't a faction you can shoot. They aren't a problem you can solve with a strike team. They're a presence. And once they notice you're looking back, they don't look away. That's when the lights in the Drifter's den flicker, just once, like a blink. Your ghost stiffens, beam tightening into a hard white line. And the Drifter's voice drops lower, as if the walls might carry his words to someone else. He tells you there's an emissary, not a politician, not a diplomat, a mouthpiece, a messenger that isn't fully a person the way you mean person, and isn't fully a machine the way you mean machine. A thing that shows up when the Nine decide the game has reached a point where whispers aren't enough. You ask him where. He laughs, short, humorless, and gestures like the answer is obvious. Not here, his posture says. Not in the tower, not in the city, not anywhere you could drag back up to if things went sideways. If you want answers, you'll have to walk off the board. Micro signpost. This is where the story stops being about catching the Drifter and becomes about choosing what you're willing to risk to understand the Nine. Because you could do the safe thing. You could march straight to Zavala, dump the ledger on the table, demand restrictions, arrests, lockdowns. But the Nine don't get arrested. All you do is make the city clamp down on a man who has always been half useful and half dangerous, while the real hand keeps moving unseen. So you do the stupidest, smartest thing a Guardian can do. You accept the invitation. It isn't a letter. It's never a letter. It's a route, coordinates that don't look like coordinates. A pattern that makes your ghost's sensors hesitate. Like the destination exists at the edge of where normal navigation logic breaks. Your ship drops out beyond the familiar lanes, beyond the places the Vanguard likes to pretend it controls, and the stars out here feel colder. Not because space changed, but because you finally left the illusion of safety. The Drifter doesn't come with you? Of course he doesn't. He doesn't need to. The Nine already know you're coming. The first sign you've arrived isn't a landscape. It's the feeling of being measured. Your ghost's light brightens automatically, a defensive reflex, and its voice is quieter than usual when it speaks, like it's afraid of making noise in a room that might be listening. Then the emissary appears. Not with footsteps, not with a ship, just there. A silhouette in the space ahead, framed by darkness that doesn't behave like shadow. Its presence feels staged, like you stepped onto a set that was built before you entered. It doesn't greet you like a person greets you. It greets you like a verdict. You try to speak first. You try to take control of the moment with the oldest Guardian move, a direct question, a demand for clarity. The emissary doesn't answer the question. It answers the fact that you asked. And suddenly, you understand the Nine's favorite tactic. They don't give you information. They give you choices that make you reveal yourself. You feel it in the way the space holds you, in the way your ghost scans return nothing usable, in the way your own confidence starts to feel like a costume you wore in from the tower. The emissary makes it plain, without making it comforting, that the Nine don't see the city the way you do. They don't see home, they don't see people, they don't see a fragile miracle worth protecting. They see a system of moving parts, a board. Pieces that collide, break, return, collide again, and you, Guardian, are the strangest piece on it. A weapon that refuses to stay dead, powered by something the Nine can't simply replicate or command. That's why they care, not because you're righteous, because you're useful, because you're a variable, and variables are what you study when you're trying to win. Micro signpost. Here's the reveal that earns the title without turning into a lecture. Most Guardians talk about the Nine like they're gods, but standing in front of the emissary, you don't feel worship. You don't feel reverence. You feel analysis. The Nine don't behave like deities handing down commandments. They behave like watchers trying to understand what makes you tick, because if they can understand it, they can predict it. And if they can predict it, they can shape it. That's what the Drifter was really doing all along, whether he admits it or not. He wasn't serving the Nine. He was acting as a bridge, running games, collecting outcomes, feeding the Nine what they crave most. Data on what Guardians choose when the rules get blurry. You turn toward the emissary and you feel the question in your mouth again. What are you? The emissary doesn't define the Nine for you. Instead, it gives you another offer, dressed up as guidance. Keep playing, keep walking paths the Vanguard won't approve, keep stepping into moral gray zones and pretending you're in control. Because in the Nine's world, the fastest way to map a creature is to tempt it, and that's when the fear shows up. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of being used while you're alive. Because you realize something simple and brutal. The Nine aren't trying to kill the city, they're corroding it by making it choose wrong things for the right reasons. A secret here, a shortcut there, a bargain you tell yourself you can control. That's how stone becomes sand, one grain at a time. You look back at your ghost. Its light is steady but tight, like it's holding itself together through willpower. You can feel it urging you to leave, to report, to retreat to the clean lines of duty where threats have names and shapes. But you also feel the pull of the map you've just stepped onto. Because the Nine have done what they always do. They've made curiosity feel like destiny. So you do what you hate doing most. You compromise. Not by swearing loyalty, by staying close enough to watch. You accept what the emissary offers, whatever form it takes, and you turn away before the space can close around you any tighter. As your ship pulls back into safer lanes, your ghost finally speaks like it's been holding its breath. They didn't answer you, it says. You stare out at the stars and answer quietly, because now you understand the trick. They did, you say, just not the way we wanted. And that's the mini-arc resolved. You didn't just confirm the Nine are real, you confirmed the most dangerous part about them. They don't need to conquer you, they just need to move you. You return to the tower carrying something invisible and heavy, the knowledge that an intelligence you can't punch is studying your decisions, and the uneasy certainty that you've already taken your first step into their game. Not because you got hurt, because you got seen. In the tower, everything is loud again. Footsteps, vendors, idle chatter. Normal life trying to act like it isn't balanced on a knife. Your ghost stays close, light, tight, and bright, like it's still bracing for that empty pressure you felt out there, the sense of being measured from the inside. You report to the Vanguard the way you always do, clean facts, minimal drama. But when you say the Nine didn't give answers, when you say they gave choices, Ikora's expression shifts from concern to recognition, like you just described a tactic she's been warning about for years. Zavala doesn't waste time pretending this is theoretical. His own logs already treat it as active corrosion, Nine influence working at the city's seams not with bombs, but with pressure. And then Ikora brings out the one thing you weren't expecting. Not a weapon, not a prophecy, a timeline, an old archive that doesn't talk about the Nine like gods. It talks about them like a phenomenon that woke up alongside everything else that matters in Saul, something born with the system itself. Dark matter intelligences tied to the life in the system. For a second, the tower room feels colder, because that's the twist hidden inside the title. The Nine aren't distant deities hovering above the board. They're part of the board. They awakened when Saul formed, and life began to exist. Entities that slumber while life persists, bound to the system's living state like a thought bound to a brain. And suddenly, their behavior stops looking like mysticism and starts looking like survival. If they're tied to life in soul, then extinction isn't just a tragedy to them. It's a threat to their existence. Your ghost drifts closer to the projection, scanning the archive as if it can find a simple switch that turns cosmic horror into something manageable. It can't, because the implications are simple enough already. If the 9 depend on life, then they have a reason to meddle, not out of kindness, out of necessity. Zavala's voice is steady when he speaks, but you can hear the weight in it, the same weight you felt when the emissary made you choose without explaining why. "So they don't conquer," he says. "They steer." Ikora nods once, sharp. "And they've been steering for longer than we like to admit." She brings up another record, one that makes your ghost's light flare in disbelief. A codex describing a secret war between the 9 and Warmind centuries ago. A hidden war. That means the 9 didn't just watch humanity build its defenses, they interacted with those defenses, pressed them, tested them. And once you accept that, a different line slots into place with a sick kind of elegance. Another codex suggests a 9 prophecy on Rasputin, like the 9 had eyes on the Warmind's future moves, like they shaped the corridor Rasputin ran down before it ever started sprinting. It's the same pattern you just lived through with the emissary. They don't hand you a truth, they hand you a lane, then they watch whether you stay in it. Your ghost makes a small sound, half frustration, half dread, and you feel the whole story tighten around a single, uncomfortable point. If the 9 are system-born intelligences tied to life, then every game they play is really an experiment in keeping the system alive, on their terms. That's when your mind snaps back to the Drifter. The sigil behind his throne, the ledger recording legendary kills in the name of the 9. Your ghost's own line, flat, damning, about him dealing with them the whole time. In the tower, Gambit always felt like a shady side hustle. Now it looks like something else, a testing ground, a place where guardians make choices under pressure, where fate gets nudged by incentives and survival instincts, where outcomes can be recorded and studied like data points. Ikora doesn't say it out loud, but you can see she's thinking the same thing. The Drifter wasn't just in trouble, he was useful. A bridge between the city and a presence that can't take a physical form the way you can. A way for the 9 to learn how guardians bend when the rules get blurry. And then she shows you the final piece, the one that makes the 9 feel less like rumor and more like physics, an exotic weapon tied to leftover 9 energies, and a ghost remark about rounds guided by a hidden power, something beyond normal rules. That's the part that kills the "they're just a cult" story forever, because you've now got it from 3 directions. They leave messages that talk about guiding hidden fates. They influence the city deeply enough for Zavala to call emergency councils about corrosion. And their touch shows up in technology and outcomes, shots that curve toward destiny like the universe is being edited mid-flight. So the 9 aren't what you think they are. They're not gods in the way the Traveler is treated like a god. They're not aliens you can locate and invade. They're a system-born intelligence with stakes in whether Saul stays alive, and they move people because people are the only hands available to them. That realization doesn't make them your enemy. It makes them dangerous in a different way. Because a thing that needs you alive can still ruin you, slowly, carefully, if it decides your version of alive doesn't fit its equation. And this is the comment magnet fork that actually matters now that the pieces are on the table. One read says the 9 are trying to preserve Sol because they're bound to its living state. Cosmic caretakers by necessity, steering you away from extinction. The other read says they're parasites with a survival dependency, guiding hidden fates to keep themselves awake, even if the city corrodes in the process. My stance, their need makes them neither savior nor devil. It makes them a player, and players will sacrifice pieces if the board matters more than the piece. Drop your take in the comments, caretaker or parasite, and tell me what you're basing it on. When you leave the meeting, you walk through the tower and notice how ordinary everything looks. How easy it would be to forget the truth you just learned. That's the 9's real advantage, not invisibility. They don't have to kick the door in, they just have to keep nudging the hinges until the city opens the wrong way on its own. And as you step back into the open air, your ghost stays close, steady, wary, and you feel the final, ugly clarity settle in. The 9 aren't distant myths. They're Saul's shadow, waking up wherever life persists. And now that you've looked back at them, they know exactly which piece you are.